Story 1. My Nissan Juke has a mysterious voice that only ever says one thing: caution, ferry, when we pass one of the island's two ferry terminals. The ferry may or may not be there, and it has never been known to cross the road without looking. Story 2. Fiat 500 multipurpose wagon had a built-in coffee maker. I would love to know how many people selected that as an option. Story 3. My Chevrolet Cruze does this thing where it never works. Story 4. My car has an alarm that tells me when it is cold outside, which is almost every day between November and March in the Northeast. Story 5. My 2021 Subaru Crosstrek will turn on the radio even if you turned it off after the last drive. The only option is to turn the volume all the way down. Story 6. My automatic parking system is pretty useless. It has to be perfectly aligned, which takes nearly 5 minutes by itself. Then it takes another 5 minutes to actually park the vehicle. It is very gimmicky. Story 7. Touchscreens for normal controls. I am going to crash trying to turn on the heat. Story 8. I am not a fan of parking brakes controlled by a button that requires electricity. Just let me pull a lever. Story 9. Touchscreen. Where are all my knob people? I want tactile sensory input. Story 10. Voice commands. I feel like a moron yelling at my car to turn the air conditioning on. I will just push the buttons or screen myself, thanks. Story 11. This probably is not a useless feature, but one I absolutely hate because of where I live. I had to get a newer car because my old one was breaking down every month. My new car has a lane departure warning and will beep or vibrate the steering wheel if you cross over the line. The problem is my city has a lot of tight roadways and potholes. Going around someone opening their parked car door or swerving to avoid a huge pothole now comes with the added frustration of being alerted by the car. Story 12. Reminder to keep my hands on the steering wheel. My Hyundai will beep if I am not moving the steering wheel slightly. At 130 kilometers per hour on the highway, I have to move the steering wheel. Otherwise, it will disable the adaptive cruise control and apply the brakes because it thinks I have had a stroke. Story 13. A glove box that can only be opened electronically through the main infotainment screen. Story 14. My Audi SQ5 tells me my phone is still in the car through the internal speakers, which is useful if you're in the car. However, it only does this when you are inside. If you're outside the vehicle and can't hear the speakers and have left your phone inside, it is pretty useless. Even then, it probably tries to send an alert to your phone to tell you that you've left it behind. Great car, just really annoying with all its beeping and ringing. It also slammed the brakes hard at 50 miles per hour because it detected an imminent impact ahead. It was a bridge. I had to drive over the bridge because it's a river crossing I need to use to get home. We drive the same route to work every day, and it decided to do this once. It needs to calm down. Story 15. Our BMW had a stereo that you could control by waving your hand around and jabbing your thumb in different directions. It worked half the time, and in the meantime you looked like a poor magician. All with controls right on the steering wheel that were 1,000 times more convenient. Story 16. BMW has a system where you can control the radio using hand gestures in front of it. A spinning motion to turn the volume up or down, for example. I struggle to imagine anyone who thinks this is easier than just turning the knob. Story 17. My neighbor's Honda minivan requires you to take your eyes off the road to look at a touchscreen and acknowledge that you will not take your eyes off the road. He says some lawyer was in charge of that, which is funny because he is a lawyer. Story 18. BMW's subscription service for heated seats. They will try to extract every dollar from you. Story 19. Global positioning systems that do not let me change the directions while the car is in drive. Have you ever heard of a passenger? Story 20. Maybe not the most useless, but the most annoying is probably a tire pressure monitoring system that does not tell you which tire is low. My 2012 Nissan had one of them. Story 21. Touch screens. I would rather use physical buttons for features. Story 22. Why do I have to activate my cruise control like it is a missile before I can set it? The set button is what turns it on. So why does that button not work if I have not pressed another button first? Every car I have had has been like this, and I hate it more than I can express. Story 23, it may be an unpopular opinion, but for me, it is the automatic high beam headlights. Story 24, my car will automatically lower the fan speed on the air conditioning if you make a phone call. It sounds convenient, but when you live in a place with weather commonly in the 90s and hundreds like I do, it is the worst. Story 25, my Hyundai Sonata automatically unlocks all the doors whenever I put it in park. It is unsafe and I hate it. Story 26. Not useless but an invasion of privacy. They are adding cameras to the cabin to watch you. It might try to prevent you from driving if you are sleepy or intoxicated. It sounds good but is too much invasion of privacy. Story 27. Hiding more and more items behind menus on a touchscreen. Nobody asked for this except cost-cutting executives. Story 28. I don't understand why more cars can't have vented seats. Almost all cars have heated seats. I live in the swamps of Mississippi. We have about 3 cold days a year and 300 hot days. But unless you're buying luxury brands, the seats are heated only. Story 29. Honestly, the heated steering wheel, when it is 75 degrees Fahrenheit outside, my hands do not need a sauna. Story 30. Chrome trim in the interior. Yes, I was hoping to be blinded and given a migraine on this sunny day. Story 31. My Volkswagen Golf has an air conditioner vent in the glove box. Can be adjusted as well. Story 32. The engine stops every time you are at a traffic light. I do not know why it irritates me, but if I had the feature, I would disable it. Story 33. Satellite radio is installed in all cars, but has not had design or content updates in decades. Wi-Fi subscriptions in cars are another poor idea. Story 34. Not sure if this counts, but I have been annoyed about it for a while now. At some point, General Motors decided it would be helpful to keep the reverse lights on after the car or truck is turned off. Multiple times, I have waited for a General Motors vehicle to back out, only for the owner to come walking out from the driver's side. Who thought this was a good idea, and how did it get past any sort of safety board approval? Story 35. No place to mount phone. I cannot believe there is not some sort of universal mount to put your phone. Why are we still using air vents and adhesives on the dashboard? Story 36. Built-in cellular. No, I am not going to spend more than my regular phone on a poor cellular plan that only works in my vehicle. Give me a built-in signal booster for when I am on the edge of or out of service instead. Much more useful. Story 37. Touchscreens replacing buttons and knobs. Voice control is not an acceptable solution. Automatic start-stop systems are annoying and barely save any fuel. We have had our current car for 4 months. Driven every single day in the city. When it stops automatically, the screen displays the length of time it has stopped and a counter for the amount of fuel saved. After 4 months of heavy driving, it has saved less than 5 liters. This amounts to less than $10 in fuel savings, but it puts considerable extra strain on the starter motor and battery, reducing their lifespan. Alternatively, these components must be overbuilt to compensate, which more than negates the slight environmental savings from using very little less fuel. Also, in reality, it has saved less fuel than indicated because it does not account for the fuel needed to restart the engine. On average, starting a modern car engine uses about 7 seconds worth of fuel at idle. Most of the time it cuts off, I have already been sitting for a bit, and then have to start almost immediately as the light changes. This means I actually use more fuel than if the engine had been running continuously. Additionally, the car is less responsive because it has to restart before I can move again. This system is ineffective and frustrating. Story 38. Any automatic door that closes only by a button control and a subsequent annoyingly slow, cumbersome motor. If I want to slam my hatchback door shut like a caveman, it should be my God-given right. Story 39. My old BMW had a car jack that worked only on BMWs. Instead of lifting from under the car, the arm of the car jack had to be inserted into a hole near the car's bottom. There were holes near each wheel. The arm did not lock in place, making the car jack useless unless you had a hole to insert it into. Story 40. Probably the nipples on the male cars. Edit, oh car not cat. Story 41. Acura Integra Type S being tuned at the factory to have pops and bangs. Story 42. The feature that turns your car off when you stop at a red light and then starts it again when you release the brake is annoying. It seems like it would quickly wear out the starter in a vehicle. Story 43. Chrome on anything that can redirect sunlight directly into my eyes while I am driving. Story 44. Give me buttons and knobs, please. Touch screens are useless if you are trying to keep your eyes on the road while driving. Story 45. My wife's Subaru suddenly slammed on the brakes the other day because a car with plenty of room turned in front of me. It was ridiculous. Story 46. My favorite useless car feature is customizable color footwell lights. They are completely useless but make me happy being able to change the color. Story 47. All the technology related to driver assistance systems, such as daytime running lights, autopilot, and lane keeping, gives drivers more opportunities to pay less attention to driving. However, I am fine with a backup camera. Story 48. Here is an actual useless feature that was removed. BMW's caring car feature would play music, change the air conditioning and lights to energize or relax you. A 2022 model I drove has it, but my 2023 model does not. Story 49. The most frustrating car feature is having to pay a subscription to remotely start your car. Story 50. The external temperature display on a Mitsubishi Outlander works as follows. Once per minute, if the external temperature is lower than the displayed temperature, the display decreases by 1 degree. If the external temperature is higher than the displayed temperature, the display increases by 1 degree. For example, if you pull out of the garage and the display shows 65 degrees while the actual temperature outside is 0 degrees, it will take 65 minutes for the display to update and show 0 degrees. This delay makes the display ineffective. Story 51. From observing the daily commute, I would say the passenger seat. Story 52. I hate lane assist. In theory, I understand why it exists. However, it is not perfect at understanding the situation, and when it tries to correct, it nearly causes an accident. For example, if there is snow on the road, it sometimes mistakes the snow for the lane line and tries to push me into the other lane. Story 53. My wife had a car with a continuously variable transmission that would simulate gear shifts, removing the benefit of having a continuously variable transmission. Story 54. The automatic high beams are problematic. Even light from a house as you drive by turns them off. Story 55. I'm kind of poor, so I drive a 20-year-old car and haven't caught up with all the new technology yet. My sisters and I were leaving for a cross-country trip in a rental GMC Denali. I was thrilled to drive it. As I backed up to leave, they were all watching me. What's wrong? Am I making you nervous already? Then I backed up to my wall, and the seat shocked me. I guess it's an option for people who don't want to hear dings, but I must have jumped a foot and swore loudly. I thought they would literally die laughing. I've had back surgery, and it genuinely hurt. I didn't figure out how to turn it off until the 3rd day of the trip, buried in a bunch of menus. If I was waiting to back out of a parking space and a car passed, it shocked me. If I was backing out and there was a parked car anywhere, it shocked me. Felt like the guy in the beginning of Ghostbusters who kept getting shocked by Bill Murray in a psychological experiment because Bill was mean. Anyway, the most hated car feature ever for me, and that's saying a lot. Whoever thought that was a good idea was a pure masochist. Story 56. My Honda Civic will roll down all the windows completely if a button on the key fob is held down for more than 3 seconds. That might be useful if you live in a place where it never rains. However, if you live elsewhere and your office is close to your car, it can cause problems when your keys just being in your pocket roll down all your windows while it is raining heavily outside. Story 57. Any kind of navigation system that is not Apple CarPlay or Android Auto is always unresponsive and unreliable. Story 58. Those fake engine sounds piped through the speakers. It is like paying extra to have your car lie to you. Story 59. Check engine light. Really, that's all you have? Could be a fuel sensor or the timing belt. We know, but we are not going to tell you. Story 60. Cup holders are never in the right spot or the right size. Story 61. A tie between automatic engine stop and start and every knob, switch, and dial being replaced by a touchscreen menu. Story 62. Idle stop. I have to turn it off every time I start the car. Story 63. The projectors in the doors that project the brand logo on the floor when you open the door. Story 64. Or the low tire pressure warning light, but it does not indicate which tire or the required pressure, so you have to figure it out yourself. Story 65. I would have to say the fake engine noise some cars play through the speakers is unnecessary. Why would I want an artificial sound when I am driving? It feels pointless, especially knowing it is not even real. Just let the car be quiet if it is supposed to be quiet. Story 66. A trunk door that cannot be opened without the vehicle having power should always have a backup handle. Story 67. Auto stop start. I hate the feature with the burning passion of 1,000 blazing suns. Story 68. My Corolla has subscription-based services, such as requiring payment to view the tire pressure without a gauge. Story 69. Digital heating, ventilation, and air conditioning touchscreens in general are 10 times harder to use than turning a knob up and down. Story 70. Mandatory subscription services. I bought a car, not a newspaper. Story 71. My Subaru Forester has a thunderstorm alert that takes over the entire touchscreen. You have to select an X in the corner, which rarely works on the first try, to turn it off. It is an interesting idea, but during a severe thunderstorm, the alert returns every 2 minutes, making driving much more dangerous. Continuously reminds you that you are in a thunderstorm while driving through one. Story 72. The claim that when you stop for too long, such as at a red light, your car shuts off is often advertised as a fuel saver. However, over time, this can damage your transmission due to frequent starting and stopping. Manufacturers should reconsider including this feature in vehicles. Story 73. Auto start stop on my Ford F-150 shuts the engine off when you stop at a stop sign or traffic light. It makes me roll through every stop sign. Long traffic lights are okay, except that when the engine is off, the air conditioning does not blow cold, and it is very hot where I live. Story 74. Tesla console. I need to feel the knobs when I need to change something while driving. Story 75. Sliding rear seats. You cannot recline them, but you can move them forward a couple of inches. Story 76. The revolutions per minute gauge. I am not doing any fast and furious driving in a minivan. Story 77. All the safety alerts if you have a wife in the passenger seat gasping like she is watching Jurassic Park in three-dimensional every time another car comes within a quarter mile. Sorry, she says she cannot help it, but that does not make it less annoying. Story 78. Anything that uses an application and does not have physical keys or buttons as a backup or failsafe option. Glenn Howerton discusses this issue with his Tesla on one of the Always Sunny podcast episodes. They even based an Always Sunny episode last season on his experience. Basically, his Tesla had to be started with an application. He parked in an underground garage and could not get cellular service. He had trouble even getting into his car at first, but ultimately once he got in, he was not able to start it and had difficulty even getting it towed. His entire ordeal could have been avoided if they had anticipated this type of problem and provided a key and traditional ignition option as a backup alternative to start the car in an emergency or a situation like this. Story 79. My Nissan 370Z has 3 buttons on the center console that do not perform any function. Story 80. You can make your Fiat 500 sound like another car's engine if it is licensed in the dashboard. I made my Fiat sound like a Dodge Ram. I am not sure if this is still a feature. I rented one and it had this feature. Story 81. Buying a subscription for the car you are paying for or have paid for is clinically insane behavior. Story 82. My BMW has a strange lever next to the steering wheel. Story 83. Radar-assisted cruise control, lane departure warning and correction, anti-trailer sway, seatbelt alarm, and automatic stop, especially after a few minutes of idling in park. I am fine with these features being available. Just allow me to disable them permanently through a menu if I choose not to use them. Story 84. For many people, it would appear to be turn signals. Story 85. I have a 2007 Honda Odyssey. Truly is peak Honda and the best vehicle ever sold. It has many convenient and useful features, but no unnecessary distractions or touchscreens. The only thing it will not do is attract attention. Story 86. A door handle that requires power in order to function as a door handle. Story 87. I have a 2012 Toyota Camry that has a radio with a code that needs to be entered anytime you change the battery. It has an anti-theft feature. I barely remember that code. What is worse is that no one was stealing factory radios from cars in 2012. Story 88. My high-tech Chevrolet goes from telling me how many miles are left to low when it gets below 40. This is really useful when you have a wife who loves to hover around this low mark. So do I have 39 miles to go or 1? 39 means I can get to work and back today. 1 means I have to get gas now. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.